Welcome back to Buying Sandlot. Today we talk about the SaaS disruption of youth sports, and we sit down with the CEO of Koomba, Greg Manarik, to talk about his platform connecting youth athletes with sports psychologists and performance coaches. But before we get into that, tickets for the Buying Sandlot Summit in Philadelphia on April 14th and 15th are still available. Get those over at buyingsandlot.com or the link in this show's description. We'll have executives from Huddle, Game Changer, Perfect Game, all speaking, and panels around text-heavy hitters, streaming, data, facilities, and consolidation, not to mention networking at the state-of-the-art Switch House and Ballers. You won't want to miss this. Check out the newsletter as we'll be announcing more updates as we get closer to the event. We also want to thank Event Connect and our other sponsors who help power the show and allow us to continue to show up in your inboxes and podcast feeds. A little note on the event. We went over the panels yesterday. I don't want these people to be thinking that we're using some software platform. We're going to be talking about SaaS in a little bit, but no, this is all coming from the noggin of me, you, James, and more.
We didn't run this through a ChatGPT instance to give me 12 panels. I mean, we were treating this thing like I imagine an NFL war room would be before the draft. We have a list of names. We're slotting people in and out. Some of the panels are largely crafted. We're in the roster construction phase, right? I feel like Brad Pitt and Moneyball, we're sitting there like, we need our Scott Hatterberg. We need someone who gets on base. We need someone to clean it up. But they're coming together good. Today in the newsletter, I announced the tech heavy hitters one, and a few of the others that are kind of fully locked down. Will roll out in the newsletter in the coming days. But if you go to buyingsandlot.com, hit the event tickets link, that'll take you to our event page, and you could see all the panels we have rolled out. We got some good ones, and we got more impressive people we're going to announce next week. So I get more excited today about the programming than I was even 2 days ago, or whenever the last time I did this. Is. So it's going well. And what I've also learned is that people tend to buy tickets on Fridays. And they're mostly corporate tickets. I don't know, though, but no one's paying individually. These are mostly corporate expenses. But I don't know, maybe budgets free up. But Fridays is definitely our sales day, which I find interesting.
All right, we'll get your tickets. I was moving and shaking.
I freak out every Wednesday when we sell one on Wednesday and then a bunch come in on Friday. So I'm learning the cadence of event ticket purchasing.
Yeah, I mean, Ballers, state-of-the-art. Padel courts, golf simulators, pickleball courts. And the reason why I mentioned pickleball courts is I got my duper rating back. Not happy about it. Not happy about it.
What is it?
3.13.
Now, what is the scale? Because in tennis, it's like 3.0 or 5.35.
It's 2 to 8. So I'm waiting in the shallow end. Let's just say that.
Wait a minute.
Now,
wait a minute.
Advanced is 4. I'm in like the intermediate range. The only reason why this is
Nick Foles
topical,
like an 8?
He won gold. The only reason why this is topical is because I believe we are going to have a pickleball tournament at the conference at the summit. So like, I'm going tonight. I'm playing on Sunday. Like I am getting this rating up before April 14th.
We're going to have to, pickleball has such weird scoring rules and people don't play every day. Like, got to stop and think. We may just need to play like first to 21 or something.
First to 7.
First to 7. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not surprised. Well, you're a 30 something, like 6'4" former D3 college athlete. I would have expected slow twitch and all. I would have expected better.
I got hosed. I got hosed. I went down the street to Ballers and got it. This is no representation of Ballers. I did go to a pro, and I was with 3 other guys, and we just played games. It was really cool. We played 6 games back and forth, and the guy focused on one of us each game. And maybe he got a bad game. I'll tell you what, I was not happy. Maybe I'll superimpose my score here. One thing that really threw me off was my team chemistry, my partner chemistry. I am an absolute glue guy. That should have been an 8. I know it would have kind of thrown off the duper scale, and the rating would have got all wonky. But I know I might not be good on the dinking, but I know I'm an 8 when it comes to player chemistry. So if you're going to be at the summit and you need a partner, I'm your guy.
That's hilarious. My on a similar vein, my Padel racket and sneakers, my Babolat's came this week. Very excited about those. So I'm going to try to play pickleball and Padel at the event. I have noticed, I've gone to some of these Padel events, and I've noticed that people, you could tell the people who've never played a team sport before and they've always played something like golf or racket sports.
Yes.
I'm sure it's the same in pickleball, certainly in doubles tennis, but padel in particular, you're supposed to move up and back in unison. Tennis, one's up, one's back. You kind of stay there, and sometimes you crash the net. But padel, there's like a strategy to the ball. Either one side's up, one side's back, and you really have to move in unison. And man, I played with a guy who clearly never played a team sport. One of those guys who like scoffs when you miss a shot. Now, to be fair, like we were relatively on the same level. We both made mistakes, but like you don't do that for like recreational racket sports. We weren't a match as a recreational sort of like clinic type thing. And like this guy's never had a teammate before. Like you just don't. Anyone who grew up playing baseball, you don't roll the eyes. The first three times somebody misses a ground ball, right?
Yeah, right. Like the pitcher walks a guy. You got to be out in center, cheering him on. Be like, hey, get the next guy. Get the next guy. We'll get him out. We'll get him out. You got 8 guys behind you. Let him hit it. That was a big one. That was a big one when I was growing up.
Excellent segue into our mental health topic.
100. Do you want to start there?
Yeah,
first?
Let's start there.
Okay.
It's a good one.
Yeah, because we are going to be talking to Greg Manarik, which was a great interview. A young guy, which I was really impressed with him. Based out of New York, they're doing a lot of stuff in the mental health space, and you don't really ever see this. And what I think caught James's eye when he found this company was like, when you think of like the mental health and you think of the sports performance and you think of all the nutrition stuff, you think of like your IMG academies, you think of your Spires, you think of your like you're paying buku bucks to kind of get these. It's never really been out or offered to youth sports athletes. And this is something that I think Koomba is doing really cool. It's a subscription-based model. I believe he said it's something like $100 a month. A lot of times the clubs or the organizations, they'll foot the bill on that and then maybe give their kids a couple of credits to go a month or every couple of weeks. And it's such an interesting business in my mind because we never really, the youth sport brain and a child's brain is the most important time to kind of be able to, lead them or on the right path or, mentally prepare them for the rigors of sport that they are going to face, especially if they're an elite athlete. So what was your thoughts on that? I saw you had a couple of thoughts in the newsletter today on Koomba when you read all about it.
Yeah, so it's a platform. When I first heard about it, I thought it was like mental health, just geared towards athletes, which it is, but it's kind of like that performance-driven side of mental health that so many of the elite pro athletes always talk about. So we've talked a lot about how one of our trends for 2026 is athlete health and safety. I would expand that umbrella to include sort of mental health, mental performance of sports. I think we saw this. Here's a great example of this. The women's singles program in the Olympics. So I forget the name. You had Alyssa Liu won, and her whole thing was the pressure got to her at age 16. She retired. 2 years later, she came back. She loved the sport, and all they could talk about was how she was out there just to have fun, and she was relaxed, and she was the best person on the planet for those 2 nights. And they made a point of saying she doesn't care if she wins. And look what happened, right? On the other hand, you had the other American girl, the tall one, and they actually did a feature on her, how the pressure got to her last time, and she fell and didn't make it. And then she got out there, and then the first singles program, she skated great, except she entirely missed the one jump, lost 7 points, and at that point had no shot of medaling, even though she skated good on the second night. And you could see, I kept saying to my wife, you could see the pressure, the angst, and she was not having any fun sitting over there before and after her skates. You could see the stress on her face. And I just thought that was a great example of someone who's got the right mental mindset and somebody who is so far inside their own head, they just can't get it done. And that happens all the time in sports. And when you listen to great athletes after they win, they always talk about their preparation, their focus. A lot of times they seem to care more about that than the physical aspect. Because the physical aspect, you just show up, you do what you do, you train, the body's going to do what it does, and the mental side takes over once you're on that stage. So I think this is great, especially with all the pressure at certainly the elite levels of youth sports and competition.
Yeah, they're starting with lacrosse, soccer, volleyball, and they plan on expanding into flag football Obviously an emerging sport. I did bury the lead a little bit. Koomba did recently launch a strategic partnership with True Sports Group, which has over 30,000 athletes under its umbrella. It was at colleges like Middlebury, I believe, before. And I think now with that True Sports Group partnership, it expands their reach to over 50,000 athletes, just a little bit more in terms of what they offer. 150 providers, all are vetted. They have accreditation, certifications. We've talked about that, the safety, the coaching compliance. Like that's a huge thing we've talked about. FSA and HSA eligible. All work is digital, subscription model, as I mentioned. The content is mapped to American development model, the 54 governing bodies, I believe, of the Olympics. Current focus, as I mentioned, on lacrosse, soccer, volleyball players, plans to expand to flag football. Um, and they also have Dr. Brian Hanley, the NCAA's former chief medical officer, is an advisor. Dr. Jamie Shapiro, who runs the University of Denver Sports Psychology Master's Program, just feels like a really legitimate uh, company, and it feels like a company that, like, I can't believe there's never really been access to this.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think it's a really good idea, and we always talk about trends here. And again, it just fits into that health and wellness trend as things in general in society, but also in youth sports, as things get professionalized. How do we offer services that keep athletes and families safer, healthier, happier? And in this case, that goes hand in hand with performance. So as you have more athletes as they approach their teenage years in high school, start thinking about the NIL and D1 money, they're going to be looking for it. That Jonah Curry wrote the book. It's very similar to Moneyball, that extra 2%, right? Where can you find that edge? If everybody's throwing 95 and has a repeatable curveball, well, what's the difference? Look at guys like Roy Halladay, famous for, I read a book by a guy called Harvey Dorfman, right? And if you ever saw guys like that out there, they were emotionless. And that, and I think it's come down to the youth level and fits and starts, but being able to productize that, as Koomba is doing, is definitely a big business, because everyone's going to be looking for, how can I be the guy who gets recruited? And a lot of times that comes down to mindset. I say this as a Villanova fan, right? What made Jay Wright so successful for a while? They never really had the most talented player, but they won championships on they had some talent, but like on the backs of 2018, they had a lot of talent, but like they won championships and they had a program, Duke, as well, on the backs of like kind of recruiting the right type of player, the right mindset, resilience, all that stuff. So productizing this, big opportunity in youth sports. I do worry about AI disrupting a little bit of like the information side of this, especially as you can have conversations with chatbots and they can largely impart the knowledge part of this to you. But I think what's interesting here is they're kind of connecting you with people who've been in your shoes. And I think that human connection is where this will stand out. But you do got to get adoption. True, starting with our friends at True, Jake Dean speaking at the conference. I think that's a great way to do it. Go into these big clubs where you can reach thousands of athletes all at once. That's the unlock here. Trying to sell directly to parents, super tough. This is the old B2B to C model. And I think that's the right one here.
Yeah, and you would hope with Koomba and with other companies that might be getting into this space, this helps with the specialization. This helps with the burnout. This helps with participation declines. I mean, obviously, we talked about the U.S. has a participation goal in mind that they want to get to. What's going to help? It around the age of 13, the MLB is seeing this a lot. Is baseball players are done playing baseball sometimes because of the fields are just getting larger. They can't make that throw from shortstop, or they can't, if they were a pitcher, they can't do the new mound, or maybe they don't think they're fast enough to get to 90-foot bases anymore. This, you hope that if you have a young athlete like that is going through that they're able to kind of use these platforms like Koomba to maybe, stick it out for a little bit longer. Maybe they grow into their body, and then all of a sudden we're talking about NIL deals. We're talking about potential pro making it to the show and all that. So I mean, there's just so much. I mean, I'm not even touched on the social media aspect that's affecting kids right now and stuff. Like this just feels like a no brainer if I'm a parent in a decade and my kid's going through it, that I would just, boom, 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 get on Koomba, get somebody. Greg did mention this. They went on a 2-year speaking tour to see what youth athletes wanted. They wanted someone that looked like them, went through their kind of, went to the same kind of events that they went to, played the same sport as them, and that's how they usually decided how they picked their sports performance coach or their or sports psychologist.
And that's where AI can't replicate. So that's where you AI proof yourselves.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, software is going to be great. The more software we can
How was
get,
that for a segue, by the way?
I know, 100%. I mean, the more software we can get in this space, disrupting youth sports, for the most part, I would say it's going to be for the better. Because we wanted to talk about this. This comes from Robert Stock 6 on Twitter. He's a baseball player. He's never written a single line of code in his life. But over the last few months, he used AI to build a pitching analytics platform from scratch. 8.9 million pitches, custom machine learning models, total transparency. We'll splice it into the episode, but here's a look at what happens when you give an interested athlete access to AI. He basically just built a pitch modeler. And he said that the creators usually go through great pains to hide their secrets because the work is so painstaking. He's talking about pitch modeling being a black box. He's doing the opposite because this was purely AI driven. He has no interest in gatekeeping. His goal was to eventually open source the model and show the community exactly how it's made to help drive the game forward. Amazing, because you think about it now, and the business case here is you've talked to the guys at Go Route before. We've talked to we have a partnership with MPI Sports, the data tracking and everything. You can now pay Claude $20 a month to be like, hey, how's my high school pitcher? How's my freshman doing over the last 100 at bats? Maybe you got a star freshman that you want to see how they've gone from 8th grade to the high school level, and now you can use their last 100 at bats, put it into Claude, and you get an entire heat map.
Yeah, I think there's like 3 levels to this. You have the collection side, which say player data, and we've spoken to Jess, Philly person. Go Route, another good one. Our friends at MPI are collecting through combines. I know Curve Sports is going to do this too. So you have the collection piece where I think lots of physical product companies are being built, and that's going to be a big trend in the industry. Then you have the analytical side of it, where you're feeding it in. Step 2 is feeding it into the AI, and it can make sense of that very quickly. And then what this guy did is step 3, where you actually use AI to productize that and build a piece of software to make this easier for people to do. I didn't look into exactly how he built it and what it's doing, but now you have a piece of software you can just constantly feed an app, basically constantly feed information to, and users can use it. So there's 3 different things happening there. I think the collection side is probably where you have the biggest moat in the industry. Like, look at Go Route. They're building things. They look like Apple Watches. I don't think he liked it when I said they look like Apple Watches, but I'm like, they look like Apple Watches. That's not an insult. And they're, everyone's wearing them on the field, and they're a coach to player communication tool. So they could tell the player what pitch to throw, where to position themselves in the field, or for football, where their specific assignment is on a given play. But the benefit of that is it knows the input. So it knows where you were supposed to be blocking in football. And if the outcome of that play was a sack, not only is it like reviewing game tape after the fact, but you also have what the input was supposed to be. If a guy hits a ball 400 feet off a pitcher, where the pitch was supposed to be, right? So why is this guy, every time he's supposed to throw high, he misses middle in and the ball gets launched, right? So the collection piece, I think, is a great business to be in, because it's really hard for AI can help that business, right? And you're building usually a physical product business there. The analytical side, can get disrupted by AI. And then I think the next question becomes, are there enough people? What we're seeing in the broader economy is, tech stocks are getting killed this week because lots of companies are thinking about, hey, how can we lay off workers? One, but at the same time, how can we stop paying Salesforce or these other SaaS platforms we use hundreds of millions of dollars a year, and can we hire a couple of developers who can use AI to build a piece of software that is specifically for our company? Right. So the question then becomes, can this happen in youth sports? Can youth sports operators, like Fortune 500 companies do an end around on TeamSnap and League Apps and say, we're going to build our own we're going to use AI to build our own registration software that we don't have to pay a monthly service fee for. And it's tailored exactly to our use case. And I actually think that's not going to happen in youth sports compared to what we might be seeing in like the public markets with Fortune 500 companies. So there's a lot there. I don't know. We can go into any of those areas.
You don't think Game Changer would, I mean, obviously they're we're talking technology advancements, but you don't think Game Changer could, as their cameras and stuff get better, tracking pitches and then being like, here's your pitcher?
Yeah, to be clear, I'm talking about two separate things there.
Okay.
So do I think the operators, the club runners, the tournament organizers, even the big ones, once they get consolidated, they're all using Game Changer or TeamSnap or League Apps or Fast Break, which is an interesting one here. And so the question becomes, are those companies potentially in trouble if it's as easy like this guy did? We're talking about a few different things here. If it's as easy as like this guy did and built his own baseball analytical app, right? Basically built like a very JV version of Game Changer in so many words, right? Saying a guy who runs can Sandiag and Curve when they go buy 30 things, or the all-star baseball guys when they have 30 facilities, can they just go build their own tech that exactly how they want and not have to pay a fee or use another platform? And the answer, I think, is no. Because the time and expertise to do that is AI is only going to make it easier, but I still don't think why go through the hassle, right? The cost of these registration platforms like Game Changer, TeamSnap, and all that, I think are low enough that no one's really incentivized to do that, unless maybe you're as big as like an Unrivaled Sports someday. They're like, hey, we're just going to build our own tech, right? I know we talked a little bit about USA Volleyball and Sports Engine and what's going on there, and who knows what happens, but like some people have speculated that USA Volleyball may wind up building their own registration platform because they're big enough. So like you could see it in pockets, but I don't think it will be like this major trend of disrupting all these tech platforms. The other side of this is, hey, what can these tech platforms do with AI that's really cool? So it's like two totally separate conversations, I guess.
I'm curious to see what your answer would be, because all this guy did was take the MLB API, go into Claude, he mentioned it, and he just built a pitching heat map for essentially probably $20 a month. So why wouldn't a Curve Sports just get an LLM or pay for an LLM subscription, that might be an enterprise subscription, and just be like, all right, here's our data platform. Take it or leave it. I mean, this is what we've seen. It just feels like it would be, I don't have to hire 15 engineers to go make a data platform. I can just hire an AI. It's a genuinely curious question because
and maybe I made the argument out of order here, but this is exactly what's happening in the public markets with big companies. Salesforce, these software as a service companies have gotten killed because the question becomes, let's take the biggest of big, why should Coca-Cola use Salesforce and pay $200 million a year for their Salesforce usage when they could build this thing for a couple $1,000,000 with a couple of talented AI-centric developers? The scale of those companies, right, and their ability to get that right is still, I think, several orders of magnitude higher than even a large youth sports operator. So I do think there's still a difference there. Also, what this guy built, I think it probably sounds easier in a tweet than what it actually took.
It was 9 million pitches he did.
Well, I mean, you pull in the API, that might be the easy part. But I've played with some of these tools where it says you could build an app, just prompt your way to an app, and you could build like the front facing version of a website pretty easily. But like hooking up all the data, there's still some expertise there. There's also lots of computing power in the back end. When you really build these things to conclusion, you're spending, even an individual is spending hundreds of dollars in AI server usage every single day because there's lots of prompts back and forth, and those are very compute intensive, and they cost hundreds of dollars a day. So this person, I don't think, just paid $200 for Claude. The coding piece within Claude and these things, you have to pay a lot more for the types of usage to build these things. Now, will the cost come down? Yes. Will it become easier for the average person to do? Also, yes. So I think what's more likely to happen in like the short to medium term is you see, again, this is just my guess,
Mhm.
is you see lots of novel use cases of clubs and people just in youth sports and in other industries. Hey, I built something cool, relatively cheap and easily. Check this out. But that is more like a feature than like a whole business, I think. Because it's going to be so easy to do this, people are going to come up with lots of interesting use cases. And I actually think those things will get consolidated into larger platforms. Someone's going to build something that's cool, and Game Changer is going to come along and say, we'll give you $2 million for that. And now it's our feature. That's and great, great on them. Here's the last piece. Why I don't think this become like people just build their whole tech platform, youth sports, and many other areas. It's like a zero fail mission, right? You may be able to build a piece of software that does 80% of what some of these tech platforms do. If you're just say you run 30 volleyball clubs, right? I'm just making this up, right? You run 30 volleyball clubs. You're like, I'm tired of paying thousands of dollars a month for this. What if we just build our own registration platform? Well, it better be really good, because that thing can't be wrong, because you're sending people, parents, times to show up to their kids' games. You're transacting payments. So you're going to want to put it in the hands of companies, even if they use AI to build it, and those tech platforms use AI. You're going to want to, there's going to be a level of like professionalization and confidence in those platforms that you can't afford to miss on. So I don't see the risk benefit of building your own that controls like all of the tech around your platform. I still feel like that it's not going to make sense for most people.
Do you think this helps the data not living in silos anymore?
That's a good question. Well, we've talked a lot about who was the first person, talked about this with Samir, who was the first person who sort of takes that first step and says, we'll open source our data, or we'll make an API that it can plug into. Some of these legacy platforms, from what I hear, had APIs, but they were never really like kept up with, I guess, right? Like you can access them, but like no one was actively building on them, so they just sort of let them languish. That's what I've heard, at least. So the question becomes, who is the person that offers that API up and says, yes, go ahead and use it? Early Twitter is a great example of this. There were all these Twitter clients like TweetDeck. Now Twitter's kind of locked it down, as have all the social platforms. But it used to be there was all these different apps that can pull in that data from Twitter, and you could use it how you wanted. Like who's going to be the first to do that? That's where I think you can get really interesting use cases, because then someone's going to say, oh, wow, Game Changer has an API. I'm going to go build this really cool tool that's going to pull together. It's going to be an app to watch youth baseball games all over the country. It's going to be an app to pull in the entire repository of games scored on Game Changer. And I'm going to build a proprietary ranking system for the best high school baseball pitchers in America using Game Changer data, right? Super cool, right? But again, who's the company who wants to make that available? It's like a chicken or the egg thing, I think.
We talk about verifiable data because the transfer portal is upending, high school recruiting. Would something like this that this random guy on Twitter builds, is this enough, in your opinion, to be able to show a college D1 coach and be like, you don't have to go to the transfer portal. My kid that I have on my, scholastic baseball team, my high school baseball team, he can play at the next level. Here's, 4,000 pitches that he had over his 4-year career here and how he's gotten better. I'm just curious.
This is why I'm bullish on the input side of it, right? Yeah. You said he pulled in Major League Baseball data, right?
Which is easier API from MLB. Yep.
Easier to come by. So you trust that the miles per hour and that data is verified. We accept that what's on StatCast is, there's lots of high-end cameras. We accept that data. On the youth side, it's all about the input, trusting the input. That's why I'm bullish on like a Go Route or an MPI or what Curve is doing or what On the Radar is doing. Any company really thinking about how to make verifiable, trusted data. The use cases, that's where the sort of quick AI coding, people could do lots of interesting things if someone collects the data and then puts an API out that you can access. But again, it's all about the collection. The collection is a safer business to be in, I think. Now the sort of like 800-pound gorilla in this room is probably Fast Break, maybe Autosport, because they're approaching their development of their platform with AI first tech. So again, I'm not a developer, but like the 1.0 software is a rules based software, right? Meaning if a user does X, then he's presented with Y options. It's all if then statements basically. If a user selects volleyball as their sport, here's the list of options they get on the next page. If a user signs up for a tournament and selects the box that they want to play on Saturday and Sunday, here's the list of options they get. It's if then. What AI first tech is doing is it's removing all those like pre-thought of workflows, and it's able to just collect the data and then make the user experience and the output use AI to do all that. It's much more efficient. So what Fast Break I think is trying to do in general when we had John on is they're leading with AI development. So they're like, hey, we're building this thing faster than anybody else because we're coding with AI. That's the vibe I got. The second side of that is their software itself is AI. The scheduling part is, I think, the most complete of what they have, but AI is really good at everyone just puts in their constraints. You have and he said this, you have an upcoming tournament. We're flying in on this day. We can't play a morning game. We have to fly out on this day. We're at this skill level. And you just feed all that fire hose of data into AI, and it's really good at making sense of it. That's where I think the 1.0 platforms have to think about making AI a core part of their software rather than people having to hit a bunch of check boxes to sort of, make those constraints and then manually build a tournament bracket and things like that. Fast Break's leading by developing with AI and then using AI to do all those things. So it's somewhat different than the ideas we just discussed, but I think it's why they raise so much money and why people in the industry are so fascinated by their existence, sort of good and bad.
Before we get over to the interview with Greg, I did want to talk about verifiable data, verifiable recruiting video. And this is something Huddle might already be looking into. Have you seen the AI generated highlight film that is going around right now?
Oh, wow. No.
I never even thought about this. You want me to I'll throw it to you over in Teams real quick.
Yeah, do an overlay here as we're.
Yeah, you can.
Was it a high school player?
A high school player.
Oh no. What's that throw was like 400 feet in the air.
that was a sky ball. It was a go ball.
Sky ball. Oh, here we go. Quarterback's on the 50. Oh no, this guy's running. Oh, he's just gonna break every tackle. Yeah. Oh, this kid's like as big as OJ in ninth grade.
See, that's the thing. This kid is huge. So you're like, okay, that kid looks like Derrick Henry. He's gonna go to Alabama. Like that second play looks legitimate.
Yeah, but have you ever seen the video of Andy Reid as a punter in high school? Yes. He was you could believe that there are these kids who are just now that third supernaturally large.
With that quarterback in the black jersey, you'll see the middle linebacker falls over out of nowhere. So obviously that's you could spot the AI in here, but there are some plays in here where it's like
barely though. So here's
what's get better.
That's the thing. It's going to get better. And what's interesting is we're very heavy in the tech space, and text. And I always say to you guys, and we talk about like in our private messages, we could tell who on LinkedIn in the industry is using ChatGPT, is using AI, right? And we just have a radar because we've kind of been in content a long time that you could spot it instantly. I don't think 80-90% of people who aren't in media or writers themselves can spot it as easily. So you and I can. And we can look at this video. We're kind of in media and maybe have a better antenna for this. I think the average coach you're sending this to is not spotting those little imperfections. And to your point, it will get better. And high school video use cases, super interesting, by the way, because the video, even with the good cameras, even with the pixelots, even with the huddles, even with NFHS or whatever, it's still not broadcast quality. And it's always at a distance. So those imperfections are just smudges on the screen that you expect. If this is we've all seen so many HD professional games that it's very hard it would be very hard to do this with that because you could just detect something feels off. But like a high school quarterback with a camera 200 feet away and 720p with poor lighting,
Yeah.
very, very, very hard to detect.
Very
Again,
interesting.
why maybe proving the point about being bullish on the collection side of things, the player data, the go route, huddle, right? Where you have a verified, so people trust. Well, I guess you could spoof it as a huddle video, right? But people, if it comes from huddle, you could trust that it came off the camera at the game. The wearables piece, right? You can't spoof the wearables if it's a player data, a catapult, a go route. This is something athletes are wearing. So you can marry the image with the video and there's some sort of verification. Again, like the APIs to talk to each other and confirm these things, think about how important they are in a future world. If you're a college coach, you see that video, but you also see that he was wearing a catapult tracker and it's got catapults. Hey, this video is connected to this catapult play the same way Game Changer connects coach scoring and video, right? It's maybe a more primitive version of that, but it's the same idea. You're marrying like two inputs to say, hey, like we got two things that match up here. Man, connecting the data to the video to the athlete profile, telling you this is like the multi-billion-dollar, $10 billion company. Just nobody wants to go first here because everyone's sitting on their own data and it's important. Samir said it. He said it. He's like, we've all had conversations. No one wants to go first. This isn't our word. This is the biggest players and the biggest companies saying, it's just like, who blinks? Who blinks first?
Who blinks first? It's so interesting. It's going to continue to be interesting. All right.
It's the top question on our tech heavy hitters panel, by the way, I think, is like, who blinks? Like, let's just have you'd be good at this. Like, let's just all sit here and have a staring contest. Let's see. Like, all you guys just get together, stare at each other. Who blinks first? Who opens up their data silo?
The Michael Scott meme in the office where they all got the guns drawn on each other in the conference room.
Yes. Yeah. And then we'll have the Tech 2.0 panel. Maybe we'll put those two panels and we'll just have them face each other.
Yeah, right. We're not leaving this circle until you guys figure this out. Who's going to start the interoperability?
It'll be like Jets versus Sharks.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. All right. Hey, listen. Thanks to everybody who tuned in today. We're going to get over to our interview with Greg. You enjoy your weekend and go get your summit tickets at buyingsandlot.com. You are not going to want to miss the panels, and you're not going to want to miss the networking opportunities
or the staring contest.
You're not going to want to miss the breakfast either. The breakfast is going to be awesome. And
the two breakfasts. Yeah, those of you with VIP tickets, I saw the VIP breakfast menu. Everyone gets a continental breakfast, right? We'll feed everybody.
100%.
But the VIP folks, it's like crab. It's like crab Benedicts. It's it's not bagels and cream cheese. It's high end. We don't do anything. We're just YOLO in here. Just YOLO.
I love it.
YOLO.
All right. Let's get into our interview with Greg. We're here with Greg Manarik, Koomba CEO. Greg, thanks for coming on. Welcome to Buying Sandlot.
Kyle, thanks so much. James, thank you so much. We're psyched to be here. Appreciate it.
Yeah, congratulations on signing a deal with True Sports Group. Can you tell us a little bit about Koomba and what you guys are doing in the space?
Yeah, totally. We're really psyched about the True partnership. Expands our reach pretty meaningfully in the youth sports ecosystem. For us, we really see youth sports as this incredible and untapped community health platform, right? Sports has always been about delivering education, building life skills and resilience and emotional capacity. And I think in the last 5-10 years, it's in some ways gone away from that. So we really are focused on building the infrastructure, health and performance infrastructure to support not only the athlete identity with mental performance coaching, nutrition coaching, and sports psychology, but also like the families and coaches that surround our young people.
I know you've partnered with a couple of different universities around the country, and now you're tapping into, I believe, what Sports Business Journal said, almost 30,000 athletes. I know the partnership is relatively new. Is there a strategy behind what you guys want to do with True Sports Group? A strategy with maybe just taking it from the colleges that you already work with? Just would like to explore that partnership with how comfortable you are, giving us anything.
Yeah, totally. I think the article quoted like 30. Our reach now is kind of upwards of 50,000, just combining both the colleges we work with as well as a lot of other youth sport organizations. I think with True, like the other ones we're working with, it's a really exciting time because I think a lot of these operators, right, know that something needs to change, right? And I think we're starting to see the market turn towards almost like prioritizing athlete health, safety, performance, and governance around a lot of this. And that touches on a lot of our work with the former chief medical officer of the NCAA, Dr. Brian Hainline, who wrote all of the NCAA's health and mental health policies for over 15 years. With True and a lot of the other youth operators, we're really focused on matching a lot of the work that we do to the American development model and what is developmentally appropriate for different age brackets of sport. So core to what we do is connecting athletes, families, and coaches to certified, really importantly, and secondarily importantly, human sports psychologists, sport dietitians and nutritionists, and mental performance coaches that all have some varying degrees of certifications and accreditations that make them very clearly certified to be doing this work. So really building athlete and family skills around like confidence, how to fuel your body, dealing with performance anxiety and navigating recruiting pressure, but also how these strategies really extend to like other parts of life, right? Like you mentioned, our college work, we're seeing that this becomes super relevant, not only to athletes, but just to a lot of young people generally who want to study for an exam and deal with like the anxiety leading up to that, or want to talk to their crush. Like a lot of these things extend to a lot of different areas of life.
So, doing this every day, writing, reporting on the youth sports industry, there's a massive trend of parents want the best coaches for their kids in terms of, it's no longer, we joke about it. It's no longer, oh, this guy has a batting cage and he played for the Brewers for a couple of days, so he's giving hitting lessons. Like they want people who have coached in college, who have played college, played professionally, have all these things. And then you keep seeing things about like mental skills, sports psychology, and you just wonder, like, to me, that's a whole nother threshold bar to clear accreditation, certification, knowing what you're doing. How critical is it for when we're dealing, especially with youth athletes, if we're dealing with their brains, to have people who know what they're doing working with them?
Yeah, I think it's critical. And like, I'm not a hockey player. I was a soccer player growing up, and it's super interesting market. But I think about like some of the things happening in like youth hockey with, there's like agents being signed with young people that really have no background in like getting kids recruited or into like a juniors program that are farming like tons of money from parents, right? Who are really just looking to help their kids at the end of the day. So for us, that's just one example of maybe the negative aspect of that. But for us, it's always been about answering the question. And we basically took like 3-4 months just to talk to youth operators, coaches, parents, and athletes at the end of the day, like what would be most helpful to them. And none of them asked for like another app or piece of content where they have to manually track things. Everyone asked for basically like the desire to talk to someone that looks like them, sounds like them, and like fundamentally understands the athlete identity. And that to us was just so clearly a signal that there's all these health and performance resources sitting at the top of pro sports in the US, and oftentimes they're looking to grow their business into college and into youth, but they don't necessarily know how to find them. So our whole goal is bringing like pro standard health and performance support to the long tail of sport in the US, that being obviously youth sports, which to your point, James, like has just become, I think, diluted with maybe varying degrees of quality.
I'm just curious. There's been so much talk, and I'm sure you know this very well, about mental health, especially with social media and college sports, especially with the legalization of sports betting and everything. Not the betting part necessarily, but do you see that sort of those challenges kind of trickling down to youth sports? And I guess, how critical is it for a kid who wants to play at the college level, where, for better or worse, their games are probably going to be on a sports book, to kind of, and other challenges that go into the continuing professionalization of college sports, to sort of build a foundation as a youth athlete in terms of how to handle that?
Yeah, it's super interesting. I think there's so much downward pressure from pro to college now trickling down into youth, and like sports betting gambling, I think is going only to grow in terms of like the issues it's causing with young people. It's a core focus of ours. A lot of our providers have experience kind of working and educating around that topic. But we actually started in college, and like we don't always mention that, but I think it's really important because it is kind of like a window into the future of a young person's development, of the issues that they're going to face, right? Like in sport and out of sport. And so when we got pulled into youth with, working with some of the largest operators in the country, it became pretty clear that like to the extent that we can deliver these skills in a more preventative way to a younger audience, in a way that really meets them where they are, which is through sport, through people that look like them, sound like them, understand their experience, like the greater the impact will be down the road, right? Like hopefully they arrive in college, they know what these resources look like, they know how to engage with them, and they have the tools sort of at the ready to navigate what is an increasingly complex landscape.
You're starting with lacrosse, soccer, and volleyball players. You plan to expand into flag football. Why start with those sports first?
I think firstly, on a personal level, I was a soccer player growing up, played soccer in college. Another one of my co-founders was a college lacrosse player. So I think there's an element of it being the networks and the environments that are close to us. And this is, very mission driven for us at the end of the day. We as a founding team, I think all experience the varying health challenges related to sport, both with like pressure and performance anxiety to get recruited, single parents spending tons of money and time to help us get there. Unfortunately, like losing peers who took their own lives in college to certain degrees of difficulties, and then also having to retire from sport, right? So for us, this is very personal. Soccer and lacrosse networks are not only ones that are close to us, but when you look at the growth of soccer in the US, right, it's one of the largest youth sports markets just by sheer total addressable market in numbers. Lacrosse growing really quickly, volleyball growing exceedingly quickly, and flag football the same.
At what point does mental skills become sports psychology? And I guess as a provider or as a coach or as a club, how do you sort of differentiate and realize this athlete needs mental skills training versus this athlete needs sports psychology? I imagine like if the second baseman keeps on throwing the ball 50 feet over the first baseman's head, that's a sports psychology hurdle that they've got to work on. But I would assume that a lot of these other things are very kind of nuanced and shades of gray.
Totally. I think I should also qualify. I am not certified in any way. I am not educated in sports psychology or mental performance, anything like that. And that's why we've recruited, what we deem or feel are really the best in it. From my understanding, what I'm learning from our providers all the time is that, there are tactical sort of skills that you can implement in your day-to-day life around mental performance. And that's things like the breath work, things like building confidence and like meditation, or like, the square breathing where you like breathe in for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4 again. Whereas like the sports psychology is like fundamentally, why are some of these things going on in the first place? And how do we work around these to implement like a lot of the mental skills, mental performance? A lot of our providers specialize in both, honestly. Some even have like LPC or like licensed mental health counseling degrees as well, because I think what we're finding is that this is a really compelling like entryway into support generally of any kind. It's almost leveraging sort of like the icebreaker of sport to identify like what actually young people need in their life.
Do you find that some clubs may make it mandatory that every athlete meets with someone, on Koomba's side, whereas others might be a case-by-case basis and only kind of direct their athletes to you guys if they feel there is a need or if the athlete speaks up about something?
Yeah, I think it totally depends, honestly. And I will say too, like I said, it's an exciting time because we do have a lot of youth operators coming to us that are thinking about and realizing that to the extent that they can keep putting the athlete and family experience first, like they stand to win in terms of retention and registration, because ultimately they're developing much more than just winning games. And so to that extent, like I don't think, many clubs make it mandatory because it does cost money, right? Like it does cost money. Not all families can afford it. Not all clubs can afford this, but we try to do a lot of one-to-many education sessions as well, where we'll either work with like an entire team or an entire age bracket within a club or within an organization that hopefully makes it a little bit more accessible. And the goal there is that, over time, over the next few years, like this just becomes foundational, right? In the same way that you're going to the gym or going to work out, like you're going to be meeting with your coach on a weekly basis to get ready.
That actually led me into my next question. I know you guys are a subscription model. What are the dollar amounts on the subscription tiers?
Yeah, totally ranges depending on like the organization and really like the involvement, but it could be anywhere from $100 a month up to $400 a month, and that really is predicated on like number of sessions and like level of support around the experience.
And then are athletic departments or clubs, do you typically see them like kind of footing the bill, or do you see a lot of like single use customers, for lack of a better term?
I would say both. Like I said, we started in college and have schools paying us out of pocket to make this available to their entire audience. We have some clubs doing the same, right? Those that maybe are generating certain amounts of revenue. But I would say like core to what we do is we're partnering with these large scale operators and activating like the monthly subscriptions and packages with parents and families on the ground.
And then how did you kind of build the mental performance coach like network? You know, is there certain qualifications that you look for first for them to be on your guys' platform? Just curious about that.
Yeah, totally. I think worth calling out too, just like the field of sports psychology, mental performance, nutrition, like is growing really, really quickly. It's an interesting time, I think, to be essentially like bundling all these different athlete-focused health providers in one place. I mentioned Brian and Jamie from the University of Denver. They were really key in not only opening up their networks of peers who lead at other academic institutions and have a sense of, you know, who is best in class, right, and also have the certifications to back it, but also all the alum that they've graduated over the years, right, that are either working, you know, in-house at a power 4, power 5 organization, working for like a pro sports franchise in the US, maybe working as a contractor with the US OPC. And so we're really starting with, you know, the first 150 of those sort of schools of thought that are best in class, right? Like they truly are working with pro athletes. And then at the end of the day, they're signing on with 13-year-old soccer players in Oregon that we work with.
And then just on the other side of the model, I'm coming at this from like basically if I'm like an athlete's parent listening to this episode, or I'm like a mental health coach listening to this episode. On the mental performance coach side, are they kind of coming in as like independent contractors and you guys are vetting them and everything, and then they're going out and, you know, you're placing them where people are needed?
Yeah, totally. So everyone to date right now is a 1099 contracted worker. We have a pretty like robust interview process with our team, but then also with our advisors and current providers, where we run background checks and also just like put them through different case studies and like on the ground examples of what the work looks like. And that's already coming through the tense of, you know, oftentimes a lot of our providers are referred by people that we're already working with. Like,
Yeah.
Hey, like I've had a great experience with you guys. I know another great provider in Colorado that you guys like need to know about or at least interview with, right? So a lot of them have that foundation of, at the very least, familiarity.
It's funny you mentioned that because we were talking with a platform that does sponsorships. He helps connect clubs to brands. He says healthcare is very told what is it, referred. So the healthcare industry is very referred. So that's cool to see. One more for you, and I'll leave you alone on your business model. No, when these customers pay for the subscription model, is there insurance copays, or is it just subscription model? You meet with somebody and that's kind of, I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, it's a good question because I think it's where we want to go in the long run, right? Like so much of this, hopefully the healthcare system catches up to this more preventative approach to care, to support. Right now, it's traditionally cash pay. We accept HSA and FSA payment as well. And oftentimes that helps, right? Like obviously a big part of this is having an impact. We don't want dollars to exclude families and young people from getting support that they need, right? But in the interim, yeah, cash pay, HSA, FSA with aspirations down the road for reimbursement.
Cool. Thanks for answering that.
It sounds like for now, most of the clients you guys work with are kind of fed through these partnerships with clubs and everything. But like big long term, do you kind of see you guys operating as sort of like a headspace, you know, or better health, where an individual person, obviously they're going to have an athletic need, can log in, find a provider close to them, fits their criteria, et cetera. And I guess that also the back end, like it's all 100% digital, right? Remote, or do you have some in-person providers?
Yeah, I'll answer the second question first, and then the first question second. all delivered online, digital experience. We do, I will go, our team, our providers will sometimes go for like in-person activations at big showcases, big tournaments, because at the end of the day, this is sports, right? This is in-person work, in-person industry, and that's really important to us too. But primarily delivered online via our digital health platform. And I'll end with like how I started really, which is where we're going in the long run. Like we think that sport in general, youth sports in particular, is this incredible wedge into community health more broadly, right? It's one of the last places where you have families and young people showing up in person, present, without phones, to really like engage in what is inherently an emotional activity, emotional sport, right? And so for us, we're leveraging sport as really like this front door to youth health and development, where we're starting with what's most pressing need for them, like dealing with pressure, managing burnout, preventing burnout, and keeping people in sport longer, with ultimately the goal of what consumer expectation will play out over the course of the next few years, where young people and their families can come to us for all different kinds of support and coaching and education, whatever it might be like, beyond just the world of sport more broadly.
Last one from me, and appreciate your time. What's in the future of Koomba? What's it kind of look like? How do you want to grow? Maybe you want to expand into different industries. Is this just a SaaS play, or do you think there could be some hardware or wearables, down the line?
Yeah, super interesting. For a long time, we've started this business at a really interesting time in like the tech landscape broadly, with AI and with like what's going on in the government and healthcare broadly. So core to what we believe in is like human connection and like connecting, demand to supply of excellent providers. And so for us, all of the technology that we'll be building in the future is to facilitate a more refined and productive connection between both sides of that marketplace, right? So the marketplace business, the technology infrastructure supports that. We'll be leveraging AI to make for that connection a far more seamless experience, where young people have all the different tools that they might need asynchronously as well, but ultimately funneling down to that human connection. And to your point about wearables, a really, really key and interesting part of this that, I'll leave you with maybe is all of the data that's collected on the back end, right? Of when an athlete is trending towards burnout, when they might be trending towards injury, what are the patterns that show up in terms of like self-talk prior to or in the wake of competition, that ultimately we don't want to keep just for us, right? Like a lot of different organizations value that, but for us, it's about, so how do we serve that back to the athlete in a way that really like helps them either meet their goal or just supports them fundamentally. So I think with that, inherently there will be some tie-ins to wearables and Whoops and Oura Rings, but it's really about in service of like supporting, the young person, the athlete, their family, that sort of thing.
This was great. We really appreciate it. Thanks for turning this around really quickly. I know we hit you with a video interview, this morning and stuff, and you're all for it. So we really appreciate that. Seems awesome. We'll continue to, follow along. We wish you the best of luck. Anytime you want to come on, you let us know. All right. Any big newsworthy stuff you want to you let us know. All right.
I love it. Thank you guys. This is great.